Alright gang, welcome back to another video. It's been a while since we did some in-training stuff. It's been some developing updates in this gym that has allowed me to do that, which is fantastic. Just going to set my Apple Watch and we're off to the races. So Monday, November 13th. Some context for today. It is supposed to be a quad dominant leg day. The day beforehand, however, I was unloading like a storage unit for about 2 hours, king bed frame. So my body is obviously a little tight today, and I was experiencing some tightness when I slept that night, which then carried over to this morning and also limited my sleep a little bit too. So when we talk about, being able to understand where you're at from a programming standpoint is, I have 7 exercises that I'm supposed to do in my program today, but taking into consideration yesterday and the stimulus that occurred on a Sunday when it should be a rest day, I'm obviously going to have to be smart in how I operate today, so that way I don't cause more damage than positive. So today's goal is to have a stimulus that doesn't directly affect the lower back. Okay, so mobility work typically will last a little bit longer on a day like this than it would on a day where I'm feeling really good. So let's say it's an extra 5 minutes. Couch stretch, hip flexors, probably do some good mornings, the works. I've documented some of the mobility stuff on the channel before. I'm not going to get too thick of the weeds. I think today is more so about like every single day is not going to obviously feel fantastic. I still say pain level is probably like a 3 out of 10, more of a dull ache, glute, hamstring, only on the left side. So without further ado, that is what's happening for today. After the mobility, we have a good idea of like what feels good, what doesn't feel good. There's going to be a lot of accessory work that's going to be able to stimulate the tissue but not aggravate the lower back. Things like leg extensions, hamstrings, adductors, and keep in mind this is for me. Those things might irritate your lower back. That's why you got to find out a baseline of work that correlates to what your goals are right now. So we will be videoing most likely the top sets of those exercises, things that you've all seen before. And I will also add, as a final piece of this, is in terms of like the continuum of pain, right? If I just did mobility, flexibility work today, I'm going to feel good probably for 2 hours, something like that. If I do my strength training, I'm going to feel good for the rest of the day. There's going to be no residual pain until maybe, tonight when I start really stiffening up. That's when the mobility and flexibility comes in. Have a good night's sleep. So if you feel like you're caught in that loop where you're doing everything in terms of flexibility and mobility, pain levels decrease significantly, but you still can't pick things up, or there's still that pain level. It's like you want to get that thing down to a 0. And I think that's where strength training will fill the gap, as long as you're doing it correctly and the stimulus is correct. So we will start chipping away what we need to do. I'm going to hit the couch stretch next, which I won't film. And then the next exercise will be hopefully soon. Good day. All right, in typical Dragon fashion, I purposely was doing some warm-up sets with my headphones on and didn't realize that the Bluetooth connector somehow interrupts the communication between my microphone, which is probably also Bluetooth. So everything that I was talking through the entire duration of the workout basically does not have audio. So now I have to cover everything again, which is fine. I do want to explain what's happening, some of the thought process going into different movements. And so we're just going to fire it up from there, just to give you guys some context. We're doing single leg hamstring curls. As you saw, I just did my first top set there. I'm switching over to the right side. I didn't cut through this just so you guys can see like typical duration of rest time from one leg to another. This can be a little bit more delayed, obviously, because I'm trying to explain what I'm doing to you, the audience, before I execute the movement. I think in this one, I was just talking about how, for the most part, everything is going to be 2 top sets today, and it's going to be gauged on how I'm feeling. As you saw in the first part of the video, we're really trying to read into how the body's feeling on this day, so we don't cause any more damage to the back, but we obviously want to stimulate the tissue as best we possibly can. So we're going to failure on every top set. That's going to allow for maximal muscle tissue growth without going into extreme levels of volume, which I think is
more harm than good, not only for muscle tissue, but for the lower back as well. I did mention for me, specifically the right leg in question is a lot stronger than my left. That's where the sciatica symptoms and also the initial knee surgery that happened also long ago with scar tissue and all that fun stuff is going to be on that left side of the leg. So that is why the right leg is significant. Well, I don't say significant. Let's just say it's stronger, looks better, and there's more pop in the calf. Even though for some reason on my left side I tend to have a little bit more vascularity, but I think that's more of a genetic thing than it is like as a precursor to like how hard I train that leg. So second top set here, I'm just really focusing on the eccentric and a smooth, tight concentric. I like this movement a lot, and it's been incorporated in my program since I've got injured because I can really focus on just hammering my hamstring without, arching or there's obviously a little bit of give in the back when you get to those force reps, but I try to keep it as tight on that hamstring as humanly possible so that all the effective stimulus is going where I want it to go without going into the back. I have tried some seated ones in the past, and I found that flares my back. And I've tried prone. I think it's good, but this prone machine in this facility, I don't get the same stimulus that I would get on this standing ham curl. So this is my bread and butter movement while I'm combating the back issue. And it's definitely seems like it's paying off over time. So it's something I'm going to continue to do. I think when I started, minimal weight, it was probably like anywhere from 10 to 20 pounds. And what I was trying to articulate in the video is I'm up to 60, 65 pounds now. So there's definitely strength increases. Strength typically correlates to muscle gain. So I'm also hiking up the shorts a little bit, show a little skin. See those hamstrings in action. See all the little fibers firing. And I guess I'm pulling up a little bit more, and then we're off to the races. So I believe on this set, we're shooting for 8 to 10. I'm not counting the reps. I just go to as close as I possibly can to failure, but I try to stay within those realms of 8 to 12, 8 to 10. And, I go to basically the muscle will not allow me to go any further, and I don't try to compensate with arching too far forward and putting my back into crazy extension. And that is the ham curls. Adductors are up next. Typically in my split, I will start with an adductor movement to warm up my groin. But being a commercial gym, you get to unfortunately have to get what you can get on. And this is the only adductor machine in the gym that I like. Somebody was on it. So we started with those single leg hamstring curls first. So all I'm talking through on this one, you can notice that the legs are jiggling like crazy. The pre-workout is clearly kicked in. I like to use about 150 to 200 milligrams of caffeine to pretty much fire up my central nervous system before I train. And, I train in the mornings, so I want to be sharp as I possibly can so that all of my brain power is being allocated to the muscle in question. Unfortunately, the byproduct of that is my legs tend to go a little crazy. But besides that, what I'm trying to do is use the stretch portion of this adductor machine to actually complement some mobility stuff. So you'll notice or you'll see maybe sometimes in commercial gyms, people are only going maybe 3/4, maybe even half of the way they should be. And they're not getting an actual stretch in the adductor. For us, having back injuries, the more hip mobility you can get, the better, in my opinion. And also not only hip mobility, but strength in that hip mobility. So you're gonna see I'm gonna crank the machine open as wide as I possibly can. Now, when I sit down and it's loaded, you're gonna see in a second here, I get a really good stretch. It feels good. And then from that stretch, I'm gonna be bracing my core, big breath in, tight. And I'm gonna squeeze concentric, very nice. And then open up again, it's a 3-second hold. Now, I'm doing the whole stack on this machine. The only way I can really make this harder is to control the eccentrics and then the concentric squeezing portion for maybe 1 second at the top. I'm still gonna shoot for 10 to 12 reps. And I'm just focusing, I'm just kind of pointing right there, that is as far as I possibly go. Some pads will allow you to connect them, but for this machine in particular, you can't actually go past that. That's the full squeeze of the rep. So getting a really, really good pump in my adductors in my groin region, and it's also simultaneously opening up my hips. I've seen some guys do a mock variation of this too, where you're in like a butterfly seated position and you're laying back, and then you put a kettlebell on the inside of each knee, and that will obviously force your legs out into position. But unfortunately, even if you were to adduct the muscles together, you can't really go up to the top without compromising the kettlebell positioning. So I think this is probably the best thing you could probably do to get some nice mobility work and strengthening all in one go. A lot of bodybuilders tend to start with this, and then they do their hamstring dominant or quad dominant day. I like it a lot personally. I think it's a great tool, and I continue to do it. And as you can see from like the stack standpoint, I'm not holding back. I'm trying to go to muscle failure just like I would on a leg extension or a ham curl. We're going to train each muscle to failure. We're not going to do, high reps for toning or whatever lovely TikTok term that we have going nowadays. So that is the movements in question. If you guys have comments on this particular one, let me know in the section below, and we'll get into chat about that. Next movement is going to be a single leg extension. This is obviously quad dominant. Something that's really helped me do this movement is I'm able to lean back on this one. Anybody who is dealing with the herniated disc knows that like sitting in upright position puts a ton of pressure on the lower back, which then therefore causes a lot of symptoms down the left leg or right leg or both legs if you're in that unfortunate camp. Now, left leg for me is the one where I had a ton of neuropathy for probably 4 to 5 months, and I still have a little bit of issues like straightening that leg, and also due to the scar tissue in the knee, it's really hard for me to extend. You can kind of see that I'm popping it out, really working that quad. I'm turning a little bit and I'm locking myself into position. Now this is a top set, mind you, so I'm really struggling with the weight, but that's good because through struggle comes stimulus, and through stimulus comes muscle change. So I when I say top set, I'm really saying like they are tough, hard sets that will force you. Like I had to get up because there was so much blood in my quad. It's almost like a cramping sensation. So if you're noticing you're doing a ton of fluff before you get into your top sets, I would interpret that as a situation where you're wasting energy, right? You're not creating maximal amount of load, and that maximum amount of load within the given rep scheme is what's going to force the tissue adaptation. So I know we're going deep in the weeds in terms of muscle building, but for most people who are doing this or looking at this from like a standpoint of recovery and rehab, if you have trouble extending your leg, this is the same thing as doing a nerve floss, so to speak, right? But you're strengthening the muscle simultaneously as doing the nerve floss. So on the right leg, it can go a lot higher. There's a lot less movement, and I don't get that same, sensation of nerve neuropathy that I do on my left. When I first started doing this, maybe a couple months ago, this was extremely, I don't want to say painful, but let's just say I was feeling that nerve sensation. So from a progression standpoint, I'm really happy to be able to extend my leg to where I'm at, where I'm getting quad activation, whereas before I could barely extend my leg because the nerve itself was almost like frozen effectively. And that led to me, wanting to do a lot of hamstring specific work, which then goes into this like pain loop where we're trying to constantly get our hamstrings to lengthen, but because it's not a hamstring issue, it's actually a nerve issue, we're kind of like a snake eating its tail. It's basically the analogy that I would use. So I just did that first top set on both legs. I'm resting, I'm talking through what had happened and kind of like the thought process of what I'm doing. And then we're going to transition into the next top set here, which I do believe I went up on. So I'm going to cue that next. As I was fiddling with the camera, the gentleman was like playing around with the weight stack. And like I said before, I think if I'm fully healthy and I'm having my logbook, I know exactly where the weights are because I'm trying to progress so aggressively on the weights, which then leads to obviously more muscle tissue. But because I'm not too anal on what the weight is, I just go by feel I actually don't remember where I was at, but so I'm kind of playing with the weight stack, trying to get to the weight that I was doing before, if not like a little bit more. I find the weight, it's definitely more, and I think on the first couple reps of my left leg, I was like a lot different than my right, so I was like, yikes, like this is a lot of weight. And we still got it done. I think we ended up doing like 6 to 8 reps on this top set. So once I stop fooling around and slapping my leg, you'll see in a second here the difference between the two sides, and then we're pretty much gonna be off to the races. So this is my top set. This is to drive as much blood into the quad. I'm also debating whether or not I wanted to do an additional movement after this, because I didn't want to overdo it from yesterday to today. But I think what I ended up deciding on was like, I'm gonna play it after this initial set. So you can see my face, like I'm really struggling. There's some shaking going on in the quad. Not a bad thing, not a bad thing at all. Just kind of shows effort level, getting to where you need to get. Extension could be better, but it's just the weight, it's so heavy. And that's where we started, or ended rather. Switch to the right leg, a lot smoother. I gotta kick that left leg out, so I'm kind of using it as like a crutch, I suppose, to drive that leg out. And I don't think I ever changed. So, one additional thing is I was doing an intensifier at the end because that left leg kind of didn't perform as good. So you can see here, I'm driving with the left leg predominantly, but the right leg is supporting it. So I'm just trying to squeeze some more reps out there, a little bit higher volume because I fell short of my goal on the initial part of the top set. So I'm just driving as much blood as I can, going. And I'm just really forcing these last couple reps, going to failure, and it should end pretty soon. Right there. Boom, great set. Second to last thing that we're doing is goblet squats. So if your gym doesn't have this gym actually has one of these. It's not an overly expensive piece of equipment. I think you can get it at Amazon for like 30 to 50 bucks, but this gym actually has it. I think one of the trainers brings it. It's a really great tool to get your hamstring to kiss your calf, so you're getting full extension. I'm really focusing on no butt wink. So once I warmed up, I grabbed a 55-pound kettlebell, and I'm kind of feeling it out. I was doing belt squats a lot, so this movement can be rotated out with belt squats. Just because I didn't want to load my back at all or put anything on my hips, I decided to go with this. But the 55 pounds from a stimulus standpoint wasn't it. It just was too light. So I ended up doing 10 reps, and I get more out of breath than I do anything else. It's just the cardiovascular side versus the strength side. So I'm in a bulk state where I have to pull down cardio a little bit, so that way all my energy expenditures kind of go into growing muscle tissue and still being able to like be a normal guy and not be tired all the time with all the food that's going in. So we ended up landing on increasing the weight after this set, which you'll see pretty soon. But I think for the audience, what I'm really trying to do is go knee over toes, right there, boom. And I'm lifting specifically with the quads, and I'm trying to focus on keeping my chest up. I know that I'm looking down. If I was probably being wiser from a body positioning standpoint, I probably would have kept my head up, maybe look at the sky. Anything you can do to keep your chest up as you descend forward is going to load the quads as effective as you possibly can. So I was actually kind of thinking to myself, I was like, all right, 55. I doubled the weight. I've got it in like a almost like a front squat position. So I'm not really loading the back of the spine. I'm just keeping everything upright, and boom, drive. So this weight was pretty good. I wouldn't say it was like max stimulus by any means, but I had a really good pump afterwards. I think we kind of shot for 10 again. For those of you who are thinking about doing some sort of squat action, I highly encourage you get yourself one of those slant boards or throw a 25-pound underneath your heels, and you're getting that full range of motion in that squat with a pause in the hole. It's fantastic for really driving volume to the quads. So great workout. I think it's a great exercise, and it really works on core bracing, hip flexors, and pretty much the whole chain while simultaneously growing your quads. You can't lose. So here I just grabbed the camera. I was talking about, potentially doing some calf work. That is a part of my quad day. And I ended up doing 3 sets only on my left calf. It was a seated calf raise, and I didn't even touch the right calf. I was kind of taking a look at the mirror and seeing like the difference in muscle size. It's not a crazy difference. It's just noticeable to me because I'm like, have those bodybuilder eyes and I want to make sure that everything is symmetrical as best it can be. And same thing from like a strength output side. The left is kind of falling behind the right. So ended up doing some seated calf work. So that's the only thing that's not showcased in the video. I'm going to do a better job of being able to talk through with the actual microphone on versus kind of rotating between the music and my speaking, so that way we don't have this error again. So if you watched the video this far, thank you so much. You are a winner. I included a little bit of posing just to kind of showcase the pump in the quads, which is going to be coming up around the corner. But as always, thank you guys for watching the video. If you're finding value in this, like, comment, subscribe, and I will obviously continue to make those videos. Thank you very much. Dragon House.